Okay, good morning. I hope all of you are doing fine. ClouDepend Systems and Candela Technologies are excited to welcome you to this webinar today. ClouDepend Systems is the sales partner for Candela in India, and I'm Bhaskar Agastya, the Managing Director of ClouDepend Systems, would be moderating the webinar today. Along with me is Candela team, whom I'll introduce shortly. Firstly, we hope your family, colleagues, and friends are safe and healthy. ClouDepend and Candela wish you good luck during this difficult time. I take the opportunity to commence this webinar now. Okay, so this image, what you see is of the Karnataka State Building, Bengaluru. ClouDepend is headquartered in the Garden City, Bengaluru. And I'm supported by my colleagues Arun and Soumya on ClouDepend side. We have more people on the Candela side, which we will be introducing shortly. I have been associated with the telecom industry for about 25 years, especially the test and measurement is my expertise, and I have been associated with many test beds across various technologies, including Wi-Fi, 3G, 4G, 5G, cybersecurity, high-speed Ethernet, virtualization, both in the development side as well as on the deployment side. And especially in the last 15 years, I was lucky to lead some of the well-known test and measurement companies in India. Today, we will have a technical session which will be led by two important people in the Wi-Fi industry, Sitarama Penumetsa and Ben Greear. So Ben is the co-founder and the president, CEO of Candela Technologies. Ben is active in the open source community with a focus on Wi-Fi and networking technologies. He is the core developer at Candela and continues to add exciting features in every release. Ben will perform the demo later. Prior to Ben will be Sitarama Penumetsa. Sitarama is the CTO of Candela Technologies, a telecommunication industry veteran with about 20 years of experience in the field of Wi-Fi. And Sitarama has worked in various capacities, including development, product management. He has actively contributed to Wi-Fi standard community, owns patents in the area of wireless mobility measurement. Sitarama is always excited to get involved with customer and solve Wi-Fi problems in the field. And I've seen him, for a long time now, and he's excellent in front of the customer. Here's a short agenda. So I think we are already done with the short polls and the introduction. We will have the presentation for about 20 minutes, led by Sitarama. And then we have the live demo led by Ben. And then we'll have a Q&A session at the end. I just want to take a moment to again remind you all, if you have any questions, please post it on the Q&A tab, and we'll try and attend them as many as possible at the end of the seminar. ClouDepend, who are we? ClouDepend is the sales partner for Candela Technologies in India. ClouDepend operates in three major verticals: wireless, cybersecurity, and network infrastructure. In these technology verticals, we cater to most of the product lifecycle, all the way from R&D to validation to deployment, service assurance, compliance, and so on. What do we offer? Test and measurement primarily, for the R&D and validation and the deployment phase. So for all the R&D and in the validation and deployment, we try and offer the test measurement. And for the enterprise network, we supply the equipment, the visibility solutions, service assurance solutions, compliance solutions, and so on. When I say compliance, it is mostly the telecom regulatory compliance tools. Besides Candela, for Wi-Fi testing, we also offer the 5G cybersecurity secure code analysis tools. Please write to us at sales@cloudepend.com for more details. We can also provide you with the software required for secure code analysis. This will help you validate your software vulnerabilities at the time of development and much before the code compilation. Moving forward, I want to talk specially about the Indian telecom testing market. Research and development in India has seen an exceptional growth during the last 2 decades, and so are the testing practices. Test beds deal with massive scale and intense complexity. Incorporating quick changes and automating them effectively has been a difficult task for many companies. With a world which was subjected to a transition to a remote connectivity overnight, automation gaps has become a quite evident, visible feature. And customer usage pattern has changed overnight, and the emergence of new technologies in the Wi-Fi, like Wi-Fi 6E, it's only pushed the limit further for most of the test beds. So this situation demands paradigm shift in thinking about future of testing in continuous integration and continuous deployment cycle. Over the next 45 to 50 minutes, it will be all about Wi-Fi access point testing in CI/CD environment. We hope this will be useful for you all. And with that, I'll hand over the floor to Sitarama.
Yeah, thank you, Bhaskar. Just share my screen here. Get it full screen. So hi, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well and staying safe. My name is Sitarama Penumetsa, and I'm the CTO at Candela Technologies. In this segment, I'll briefly introduce Candela for those of you who have not heard about us, and then talk a bit about the Wi-Fi testing in a continuous integration, continuous delivery pipeline environment, which is how a lot of the R&D organizations are operating these days. I'll also talk about how test tools can play their role in a CI/CD pipeline, and after my talk, Ben will do a live demo of an example of how to achieve complete CI/CD automation for Wi-Fi access point testing. Now, Candela has been around for 20 years, building wired and wireless access test equipment. The company started off building traffic generators and network impairment and network emulator tools for edge and core network testing. And over the past 15 years, we have been building Wi-Fi test tools. Candela is a 100% engineering organization with networking technology, protocol, test, and firmware experts. We have over 200 customers worldwide using our test tools in various stages of design, development, and deployment of wired and wireless networks. Our Candela products have the unique ability to test entire networks end-to-end, both the edge and the core, emulate thousands of endpoints, generating thousands of traffic streams, emulating servers and other network elements, communicate with real network servers, automate hundreds of test scenarios, create custom test beds, and a lot more. Now, in case of if you have not heard of Candela before, you may be surprised to know that we have a wide variety of customers, including some of the biggest network equipment makers, IoT and wireless device makers, chip and module vendors, operators and service providers, gaming companies, transportation and in-flight connectivity companies, government organizations, financial institutions, and some large enterprises, all using our products extensively to test. Candela products can test wired and wireless access points, can test devices, test entire networks, and also test various applications that run on networks, covering a wide variety of industries and use cases. The three main product categories include LANForge Fire for traffic generation, LANForge Ice for network impairments and network emulation, and the Wi-Fi product line for Wi-Fi device emulation and network emulation to test access points and devices. So that's a quick overview of Candela, and if anyone is interested in learning more, please drop us a note after the webinar and we'll be happy to do a more detailed presentation. So now moving on to the main topic of the webinar. Over the past decade, Wi-Fi has become an extremely important part of everyone's lives. Wi-Fi is now considered a basic utility on par with water and electricity in homes and offices. With remote work and home office automation and over-the-top video content and Internet of Things and many other such modern trends, Wi-Fi is expected to work and work flawlessly all the time and every time with lots of devices connected. Wi-Fi access point testing, as we all know, is complicated with so many different aspects of functionality, scale, performance, stress, and so on that need to be tested constantly. And on top of that, given the rapid evolution of technology and ever-evolving customer requirements and strong need for time to market, most Wi-Fi R&D organizations are having to operate on a continuous integration, continuous delivery model for development, testing, and product releases. Now, a CI/CD pipeline model can create a lot of constant churn for R&D organizations and requires test teams to quickly adapt, automate, and approve product releases across multiple product lines. So the question here is, how to set up full CI/CD automation to facilitate rapid release cycles while maintaining excellent test coverage and product quality, and still beat the traffic and go home in the evening at a reasonable time to help kids with the homework. Well, most of us who have been doing Wi-Fi testing for many years are very used to the concept of setting up test beds for various key product function areas and key customer use cases. Some examples are listed on this slide. Automation for all these types of test beds is in itself a very complicated task. Now, the added challenge is how to fit all of this complexity into a CI/CD pipeline, which involves a constant flow of features and functionality through the pipeline, all the way from product planning to customer deployments and monitoring. Even though all these stages already exist in a normal model, the interaction between some or all of these stages is often done manually. For example, when a new builds are ready, the QA manager may usually get a notification from the dev team along with information about the key features and fixes in the new build. The QA manager will then assign one or more testing resources who will then try to figure out which test bed to use for testing, and sometimes may even have to put together a new test bed or have to do a combination of manual and automation testing. The results are then gathered from various QA team members working across different time zones, and a report is put together by the manager with performance comparisons across multiple previous builds and noting any regression issues. While this process works just fine for longer release cycles that span across several months and years, in a CI/CD environment, everything needs to be a lot more agile, and hence automation of as many of these steps as possible will be absolutely key to successfully implement a functional CI/CD pipeline. So the key here is automation, automation, and automation. Before we get into the details of how we can achieve this, I wanted to quickly digress and talk about a super cool initiative in the Wi-Fi world that is implementing a full CI/CD pipeline model as we speak. If you work in Wi-Fi, you should most certainly check out the work being done by a telecom infra project abbreviated as TIP, T-I-P. You can just Google for TIP Wi-Fi and find out more information. TIP Wi-Fi is an open source community project that's being led by some of the biggest companies in the world with a charter to make Wi-Fi more affordable and ubiquitous in all corners of the world. I personally happen to believe that open source is the future of Wi-Fi, and if your organization is not yet involved in TIP, you most certainly should look into it at least. I'll not go into all the details in the interest of time, but in a nutshell, TIP is creating an entire open source community with the goal to tap into the collective expertise of R&D organizations across the world and develop several key open source modules for Wi-Fi AP and cloud controller software, firmware, and hardware. This effort can really level the playing field and substantially reduce the barrier for entry for smaller organizations who can then leverage at almost no cost all the open source software and white box hardware platforms made available by the community to build the base products quickly at very low cost, and then innovate on top of that to create unique value proposition in their specific target markets. For example, a small startup Wi-Fi company in West Africa can build products using TIP software and hardware very quickly and with very less expense, and then offer customized solutions to small businesses locally, thereby creating more opportunity for everyone. So, if you are a small Wi-Fi equipment manufacturing company, you are literally getting for free what large organizations may have taken many years to build, so you should most certainly be interested. And if you're a large organization, you should be very interested too, as you don't really want to be left behind and let the smaller companies ramp up quickly and take away market share from you. The TIP community is currently making very good progress on implementing a highly efficient CI/CD pipeline. Member companies check in their contributions into the TIP repositories, builds are automatically created and tested. Now, Candela was given the opportunity to play a big role in CI/CD automation for TIP, and we are very excited to be a key contributing member. Here is just a quick snapshot of some of the fully automated Candela Wi-Fi AP performance tests that are run as a part of TIP community labs right now. The TIP community labs are open for all TIP members to use. We highly recommend that you check out TIP and get a head start on this excellent initiative, which is, in my opinion, can easily become a big part of the future of Wi-Fi. Okay, so back again to the details on CI/CD automation. As I mentioned before, the key to achieving a fast path to CI/CD is to automate every step of it. The framework we're currently using contains the following key components. The test orchestrator automatically finds new builds, figures out the test plans to execute, and the available test beds to run those tests on, and then passes this information onto the test controller. The test controller then upgrades the device in a test, controls the test tools, in this case the Candela LAN 4 system, and runs fully automated tests, gathers the results from the test system, compares them to predefined pass-fail criteria, and publishes the results and reports to a visualization tool. The visualization tool can then present a measure of success and comparisons with previous builds and look for regressions. This diagram shows a more detailed workflow of what I just talked about in the previous slide. The really cool part of this is that pretty much everything you see here can be achieved with a combination of some general purpose Linux machines and virtual machines in the cloud and a series of Python scripts that can control all these elements and the workflows between all the elements. Platforms and tools like GitHub, JFrog, TestRail, AWS, and other tools can be used to create fully automated and integrated CI/CD automation. Now let's take an example of running a simple test on an access point that is connected to a cloud controller. The test case is to connect a few stations to the AP and make sure the connection times meet the pass-fail criteria, and both the AP and the cloud controller register the connections. To run this test scenario, a Python script can be written to automatically check for and pull the latest builds from the repo and load them onto the AP. Once that's completed, the script can then pick the right test bed to use and send a command to the Candela LAN 4 test system to initiate the client connections and measure the client connection time. The script then will also log into the serial interface of the AP and the interface of the cloud controller in the AWS and check to make sure the client connections are registered both by the AP and the cloud controller. The script can gather the test results from the test system and push them into an automation tool like TestRail, for example, for visualization of the results. All of this can be achieved using readily available platforms and tools. Here is a testbed diagram that shows the connection between all the testbed components. In the interest of time, I'll not go into all the details, but if anyone is interested in getting more details, we'll be happy to, please contact us and we'll be happy to do a detailed presentation on how we can do this using this equipment. And here is an image of a simple AP testbed. This testbed is designed to create a fully automated lights-out lab with an RF enclosure, programmable power switches, webcams, and Candela LAN 4 test systems, serial interface connections to the DUT, and a lot more, with a goal to configure and control all the components of the testbed remotely. We can also create more complicated test beds as a part of CI/CD automation for advanced test cases like mesh, roaming, scale, stress, performance, and a lot more, and integrate all these complicated test beds into a CI/CD automation environment. Okay, so now as promised, we reached to the most interesting part of this webinar, a live demo of an example of a CI/CD in automation in action. So over to you, Ben.
Hello, thank you for joining us. My name is Ben Greear from Candela Technologies. Let me get my screen sharing here. Okay, assume that came up okay. So today I'm going to show you a subset of the CI/CD pipeline. The circle in green here are the components that we'll be concerned with. So at the start of my demo, the test orchestrator has already done its job. It's looked in the build artifact system. It found a new image and it created a work item that we will use to execute. So the testbed controller will ask the orchestrator, do you have any new work? And yes, indeed, new work will be found. The testbed controller will then tell the LandForge to run the test. The device under test will do its job. And in the end, we'll get a result. So this test will take a little while to run, even though I'm using an abbreviated version of the full CI/CD in the interest of time. And just to reiterate what Sitarama showed, this is the test bed we're using, or very similar to that. So we have the LandForge at the bottom. We have an AP, which is the device under test. And we have some auxiliary components to help with remote access and so forth. So where I'm at, it's getting on towards midnight. I'm at home, and I'm going to do this demo over the system that is down in our lab several miles away. Just as easily, this could be done in a system that is around the world or anywhere with network connectivity. So I want to stress that not only can you use this for CI/CD, which is basically an automated system where you set it up and you just kind of look at the results every now and then and go and look into bugs reports and such like that. But you can also use this as a manual testing where you log into a remote test bed, reserve some time, and run specific tests that you're interested in. So this window here is a VNC connection, a virtual desktop connection into the testbed controller. So the screens on the left are the testbed controller, and it is connected to the LandForge desktop, virtual desktop on the right. So this window is the LandForge desktop. The big window here is the LandForge GUI. That's our command and control application. It will visualize the existing test, orchestrate driving the test, generate reports, and so forth and so on. So in this case, the LandForge is represented by the green square here. The device under test is the blue system. The curved line is showing that stations are connected. So this is kind of an idle state left over from the previous run. And then I'll be starting this. So the test controller script, this is the script that is going to pull the orchestrator to ask for a new work item. So it calls this and it passes some passwords information, and here's the URL to use and so forth. So this script would be customized for your particular scenario, your particular lab. I think that most likely you would be able to use a lot of what we have here, but at the same time, it's not a huge script, and it could be written for your custom scenario. So when I start this test, it's going to download some stuff. It's going to stop the LandForge GUI, which will be automatically restarted, and then it will get on about doing the test. So I'm going to go ahead and click enter and hope that things work well. So I tried to add some comments in the script here to explain a little bit about what's going on. You see that the GUI was stopped and now it restarted itself. We do that to get the system to a known state. We may in the future add some additional initialization, but for now, then this is sufficient for our current test cases. So we've pulled down the image, and now we're upgrading the DUT. So we have some scripts, some Python scripts that effectively run expect. We're logging in over the serial port. of the DUT and making requests for it to do the upgrade. You could also do this over SSH if your DUT does not support serial connection. We find the serial is nice because it's good for gathering low-level debugging information if indeed the regression test finds any problems. So in this case, we're not using the cloud controller. It simplifies the test case, and in this case, we have not fully set up the cloud controller for this test bed. So some initialization, we'll be rebooting the AP again. Okay, so the AP is back up now, or it will come back up shortly. And at this point, we're starting the automation test. So this is the fast one, which takes, it depends. I've abbreviated this time, so it's quite fast, but normally it's maybe a 30-minute test. We have another more substantial test that takes 3 to 4 hours, and all this is configurable, and individual tests can be added or removed from your scenario. So the script on the left here is causing the GUI to do these actions on the right. I am not driving the GUI automation. These windows are popping up due to commands that we send over TCP IP socket into the GUI itself. So we have basically a command line interface into our GUI. So I'm going to slide these windows a little bit to the right. So back here, you can see the stations that we're creating. So this test is going to create 32 stations on several different LandForge radios and have them associate to the access point and run a throughput test. So at first we just do a single station test, and this happens to be a 2.4 gigahertz radio. So the overall throughput for the first one is relatively low. You'll see that it's in the 125 meg range. For the next iteration, we'll bring up 5 stations total, which will bring up an additional 2.4, as well as some 5 gigahertz radios. And now because we're running 5 gigahertz, then our throughput is going to be a lot higher. So this test will continue until all 32 stations have been brought up. It's a configurable set, so we bring up 1, 5, and then we'll bring up larger quantities after that. We run the throughput test at each time. We're gathering a lot of other statistics too, including latency and gathering logs and more than I can go into in this demo. As with all of our stuff, if you want details, please ask. We'd be happy to go into great detail on any of this. So while this is running, another thing we're doing is we're watching the logs. So let me show, see if this. So this file is being created on the file system by looking at the serial port output from the device center test. So in case any problems are found, like kernel panics or firmware problems or things like that, then this window would show that. And this is just for demonstration purposes. So normally this file would be just gathered up as part of the end result of the CI/CD test. It'll be packaged up and uploaded back to the test orchestrator for display and long-term storage. So I'll show you that towards the end once the test is completed. So at this point, we brought up all the stations. See, they all came up. They have IP addresses, and we're running traffic once again for the final test of 32. In the non-abbreviated version of this, I actually bring up 228 stations on this access point. So each of the LandForge radios, the 11AC radios, can do 64 virtual stations each. So even with a relatively modest system, so one LandForge with, say, 6 radios in it, you can create a very large number of stations to really stress test your access point. And just bringing up a bunch of stations and driving traffic can flush out a lot of bugs. We also have many more advanced tests where we're doing like station resets while the traffic is flowing and doing a mix of TCP and UDP and web traffic and other such stuff. So the test is completed. You see here that we're uploading the results back to the test orchestrator. So the test orchestrator is another script. And remember, it asks for new new builds to test on the access point, but it also gathers up and deals with the results from the test beds. So the TIP organization that we're working with and which this test bed is associated, the long-term plan is to have at least 16 test beds. And so different AP platforms will be in each test bed. And so as builds are found, we'll decide which test bed to be used based on the hardware in it. And there'll also be reports gathered for each of these test beds for each of these software releases. And so it gets to be a big, big pile of reports. So let me show you some examples that I've previously done. So this is the Ferndale 01. So this is our town is called Ferndale. And this is the one down in our lab that I've been running a test on. Now, this is a longer test. It was run a week or two ago, or 3 now. And it's doing like a 4-hour test with, so throughputs, testing throughput with single station, upload, download on different bands. This is a capacity test and some other things. We have a bunch of subtests in each one of these test cases. So the total pass was say 3,000 and such, and then the failure was around 1,000. The truth is this test bed is not well tuned for pass fail. So we're not trying super hard to get these failures down. A lot of them is like the station connected in 32 milliseconds instead of 31 and things like that. We are looking at the logs. So we found a couple of crashes and a couple of warnings. And so if this was your system and your build, then you would probably want to click into here to find out some more information. Again, this web page is generated by the test orchestrator that we wrote. You do not have to use this to make good use of the CI/CD, but you might want to. So another option is to drive it with something like test rails or some other, or like the Facebook CTF project that would take unit test and provide long-term storage. Something like Jenkins may be familiar to some of you that I think would take a similar role. How are we doing on time? I think we're still okay. So anyway, so you can click into here. You can see the details. You could go into the individual test case. These PDFs or web pages are what we generate as part of our normal our normal manual as well as automated test. So these are available. PDFs are generated to pass off to third parties easily, things like that. One final thing I wanted to mention before we go to Q&A. We have a programmable power controller in all of our test beds. And so when you are up late at night and your system dies horribly and you don't feel like driving down to the office, or you can't for other reasons, then we can use this power switch to gently switch everything off and then switch it back on again. So this is a nice little feature. We're including that. Of course, you can get these elsewhere, so this is not magic. But we find it useful and we include those in our test beds. So let me go back to show you the slides once again. So this was our test bed that did all of this. And again, this was the part that I showed you. Cloud SDK, Cloud Controller, we did not include in this, although it can be done. The test orchestrator, I did not kick off, but it's waiting in the wings. And the build artifact systems are running along their merry way, even right now, probably creating new builds. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to pass this back to Bhaskar, and then we'll go to Q&A and closing remarks and all that. Thank you much.
Thanks, Ben. Let me go ahead and share my slide. Yes, you're fine. Okay, great. Thanks, Ben. TIP is something is important. I think if any one of you have not been associated with them or not heard about them, or if you're already working with them, it's good to spend more time with them to understand more, and that was quite insightful to me, Ben. That was good. Okay, so I'm going. So one question I have, Ben, is have we implemented this solution in the market already?
So yes, the testbed I showed you is actually part of the TIP organization, and we are busy rolling that out right now. Individual components of this, the LandForge, of course, we've been selling for many years, but to put it all together and package it is new for us, and we're actually enjoying this. It's complex, but I like doing it.
Excellent. Okay, thanks, Ben. I just want to remind everyone. We'll shortly get into the Q&A section. Please post your questions in Q&A tab on your screen. With this, I'm just getting to the next, probably the one more slide. This is probably the last slide of this webinar. So this is the kind of the framework which Ben presented, Sitarama presented, and what Candela and ClouDepend, what we can do. So at least, I mean, to me, I've been associated with many test beds for the last 15 years, and I've seen this multiple times. I mean, for us, if we look at a topology like this, we can try and give you a test bed, like a test equipment, incorporate your test plan in our automated GUI. We can also provide you with a list of APIs for you to integrate and so on. So what happens is, I mean, depending on the size of the organization, depending on the way you work, you'll already have a certain components of it. You might not have everything, but you might have probably everything, but not be working the way you want it to work and so on. So there are multiple combinations. So first of all, we can start with providing you with the test equipment, incorporate your test plan and so on, and provide you with the APIs. Then what can we do? We can integrate the tester in your existing environment. I mean, you'll have different scripting languages you need us to support. It will require a certain degree of professional services. We can do this mostly the short term, probably 4 or 5 weeks kind of professional services. We need, and it will be a step closer towards the CI/CD. And when I say CI/CD, and I think all the panelists on this webinar today are aware of the fact that you will have a certain implementation of a CI/CD in some way or the other, but it may not be full. So at least this topology gives us a feeling that, okay, what can Candela help? I mean, is it a portion of it, all of it, or probably we can do a much larger integration. So I would say these are the steps what I just mentioned, and then we go to the complete integration of including the cloud controller, the device under test, also a long-term integration time, like 4 to 6 months. We can have a resident engineer on site and try and spend time with you to a full integration on the testing side. Now, with our end goal is complete lights out, hands off, complete automation. And how can we achieve that is what our focus is, and how can we help you get there is more important. And I've seen multiple test beds across, and I can tell you in the last 10 years, I think the most successful implementation of this kind of automated environment starts somewhere, right? I mean, you'll already have a certain test bed, something's working. The best way to look at complete automation in a CI/CD environment is to start with the next new product what you're planning to introduce into the market. Some new test bed where you need to write certain tests, where you probably you might be trying to integrate with probably existing the scripts what you already have and so on. But then graduating them, taking a step forward and trying to look at it more in a fully integrated CI/CD environment, and then making the new product introduced be tested in a CI/CD environment and use that inventory back into the legacy platform will probably be the best way to move forward. So this is what we can do. We can, irrespective of what stage you are in, with respect to your testing environment, we can help you with that. Okay, so then we move into the questions. With that, for questions, let me run through what questions we have right now. Okay, we have a question. Is there a demo video of how roaming tests are done and the setup requirements? Ben?
Hello, yes, this is Ben. I've been answering these in text form, but with some links and so forth. But yes, indeed. So we have a full roaming or mesh test bed. We can also do roaming like a forced roam where you do not need RF chambers and attenuators. So it kind of depends on your goals and how you're trying to set stuff up. We do support both of those, and I think we have a very solid solution there, including things like 11R roaming and some of the more advanced authentication. So I posted some links into the Q&A, and of course, we'll be happy to follow up on that.
Okay, thanks, Ben. Okay, the next question is build system artifacts is proprietary? You Jenkins it, your CI/CD infra.
Right. So it's not proprietary. Currently, we're just we're scraping a web page that has images. So any type of accessible API to find and download images, and a web page is probably the easiest way to do that. We should be able to integrate with. It's nothing super magic. So I think we could work with whatever the customer has.
Thanks, Ben. Next question, are you planning to enter 4G, 5G test automation space?
So Candela is not. I don't know, perhaps ClouDepend has some offerings there.
Yes. Yeah, so the answer is yes. We can, I mean, yes, we have the expertise to help you with the automation space in 4G and 5G environment. Okay. All right, so I think we are almost done with the questions.
Bhaskar, this is Sitarama, if I might add a point. So one point I want to make it, if it's not clear, we are not, the solution we're offering, we're not just like a test automation solution or test automation company, right? We are providing the entire thing, like including the test equipment. So the test tools to actually run all the tests, and then all the test automation on top of it. So Candela is primarily a product company that offers test tools and test products, right? And on top of that, we're adding all these automation and all these other things that we have. I just want to make sure that point is clearly understood.
There's one question, can the clients have different RSSI levels? For example, 32 clients scattered around between the range of 30 to 70 dBm.
So yes, this is Ben again. So we do offer programmable attenuators. The test bed that I showed in this case does not have an attenuator. It uses a fixed attenuation just to make sure the signal is not too hot in the small chamber. But we do offer rate versus range testing, receiver sensitivity, and other things like that, as well as kind of some fairness testing in our TR398 test bed. And these would use programmable attenuators to change the RSSI effectively for the different stations. So we do support that. It's not what I showed today, however.
Great. Let me just take one quick look at if there are any questions otherwise. Yeah. Yeah, I think we have exhausted all the questions. So yes.
Bhaskar, there is another new question.
Yeah, go ahead,
I think it says, do you have plans to develop new products out of India? If you mean test equipment, yes, we do have plans, and Candela is working with ClouDepend, and we do now have an office here in India, like a small development center to go along with our US office. and we will be helping our customers in India, supporting them with local engineering help, and we'll also be developing test solutions locally here as well in the long run.
Thanks, Sitarama. Is Wi-Fi 6 conformance certification available? This is one of the new questions.
So I can take that.
Go ahead.
So we do support Wi-Fi 6. We have some basic tests primarily related, it's like OFDMA, the MCS 11, performance and stability. We do not have any conformance certification tests. The TR398 test for Wi-Fi 5 is sort of a certification, but aside from that, we're not really a certification house as far as that goes. Sitarama may have something else to add here as well.
No, the only thing I would like to add is, as Ben said, we're not really focusing on just basic certification. We are more focusing on performance and real-world deployment scenarios for testing access points. Most certification test plans that are out there, normally what happens is the bar is set very low on performance. So most certifications are really looking for, can a client connect to an access point and send some traffic? And if it can, then it is considered a pass, right? That's not really what happens in the real world. In the real world, we have all kinds of stress and performance issues that the APs have to deal with. And so our focus as a test organization is to really bring all the real world scenarios, including stress performance testing capabilities, into the lab using our test equipment. So our focus is more in that area.
Thanks, Sitarama. A new question. Do we have any idea on test with 11AY AD testing?
Not at this point. That's something that we are going to look into in the coming months, but we don't have anything at this point.
Okay. Okay, I think we're up now. We really thank you for attending the webinar. There's a short poll. If you can give your feedback, that will be helpful for us. We hope this was useful, and we look forward to do more such events in the future. Given an opportunity, we would love to help you solve your Wi-Fi testing challenges. The gift vouchers will be, for all the attendees, will be sent across on the registered email. And stay safe, take care, have a nice day. Thank you very much.